A lot of people are arguing that there is no Cold War at all. It ceased to be in November 1919 when Europeans assembled in Paris and have signed the Paris Charter for a new Europe. It was a long time ago. Some experts argue that nothing of the kind. It ceased to be Cold War I, but there appeared Cold War II in a qualitatively different manner. So, unfortunately, I believe that Cold War II is really a real factor nowadays, though it incorporated a lot of old Cold War features, like 9 major threats. If you see this. Well, first of all, this is NATO enlargement further east. From Cold War I till Cold War II, the number of alliance member states has nearly doubled. From 1999 to 2009, 12 new states, or 43%, appeared in the list of the alliance. Moreover, NATO is still committed to its expansion. 4 more states are in the waiting list, are queuing to become a full-fledged members, including Georgia and Ukraine. And NATO official representative in Moscow, Robert Pshel, recently admitted that NATO would welcome admission of Ukraine and Georgia into the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. More than that, a new NATO Secretary General, Mr. Jens Stoltenberg, during his inauguration ceremony, October 1st, declared that the alliance signed agreements with Finland and Sweden that would enable them to have even closer cooperation with the Western Military Alliance. October 15th, so not quite long ago, the Pentagon chief Chuck Hagel criticized Russia that it's standing on the doorstep of NATO. But this is absolutely perverted imagination. Not Russia came to NATO's doorstep, but vice versa. We have no intention to proliferate our zone of vital interest, as the Americans used to say, and simply would like to our national interest to be honored and respected. Mr. Chuck Hagel has put it at the United States Army Symposium recently that US soldiers either deployed or forward stationed in nearly 150 different locations around the world, not only on the doorstep of many countries, but really directly on their soil. Second, the end of ABM Treaty, the treaty that all American administrations of the past labeled as a cornerstone of the global stability. Third, a decision made by previous administrations of the United States to deploy a global BMDS, ballistic missile defense system, very close to our doorstep. Fourth, related to this previous observation, is the beginning of the first phase of the European phased adaptive approach to the BMDS. One phase has been successfully completed. Now they are in the second phase and will extend it till the year 2022 and beyond. I have seen the Raytheon report, one of the subcontractor of this project, till 2030. Fifth, a broad-based decision made by Washington to modernize US tactical nuclear weapons, deployed in Asia-Pacific and as well as in Europe. Not in Greece, I know. in the past, but you have wisely recommended to take these capabilities back home. Unfortunately, a new type of tactical free-fall bomb, B-6112, will appear soon on the European continent. And for this particular gimmick, a special carrier interceptor fighter F-35 Alpha A will be introduced to Europe, and a number of countries expressed their desire to buy this kind of aircraft. Unfortunately, 4 types of U.S. interceptors, fighter planes, deployed in the area of the Baltic Sea have DCA capability, dual capable aircraft capabilities, 4 of them. And they are operating day and night throughout the entire year near Russian shores in the Air Force bases Zokniai in Lithuania and Emery in Estonia. 15 NATO countries have been already involved in such exercises. I am not claiming that they are having real nuclear tactical bombs while conducting exercises Snowcat or Steadfast Moon, but nevertheless, it's a possibility. No one can exclude it, should exclude it. Number 7th, NATO solidarity with Georgia when it attacked South Ossetia in August 2008. 8th, a special creation of a Chicago Triad, Chicago Trident. It's a kind of mixture of conventional forces, nuclear capabilities, plus BMDS. Again, very close to the Russian Federation. The Veselu BMD operational complex, not even base, but complex, which is much larger, started its construction. It will be finalized next year, 15, and the same operational BMD complex will be ready in Poland in 2018. At NATO recent summit in Newport, Wales, there was a desire of NATO and especially of the United States of America to attract more European countries to implement this very project. And finally, 9th, in February this year, the United States engineered the unconstitutional coup in Ukraine that empowered an ultra-nationalist and anti-Russian regime in Kiev, which has already carried mass war crimes against peaceful citizens. The ratio of losses between civilians and freedom fighters, armed personalities, is 10 to 1, or sometimes 15 to 1. That's a tremendous figure, because the Americans are helping this regime to survive morally, financially, and economically, and by using secret services like CIA and other agencies. And such horrible things are being used, you have heard, like multiple rocket launching system, Grad, Uragan, and Smerch, that can wipe out entire quarters in the cities. So I will dwell upon this particular issue as a humanitarian crisis at tomorrow's session, and I finish for this with Ukraine, but nevertheless, I will come back to other issues. So this is a graphic illustration what Ukraine has already paid. This figure I brought from official sources, the Federal Migration Service of the Russian Federation, up to October 20th. This amount of Ukrainians have arrived to Russia fleeing from genocide. Not all of them just became refugees. Only this number, this one. And there are 280 IDPs or internally displaced persons that are just moved to other parts of Ukraine. They have moved to Russia to see their grandmothers, as Jennifer Psaki used to tell all of us. But this is not the case. They escaped from torture and extermination. Another factor dealt with the Cold War II. It's downing of MH17, Malaysian airplane, July 17th, over Ukraine. It was hit by this automatic high-speed airborne cannon, called in Russian Gesha 32. Oops, sorry. Again. This one. And they hit the cockpit in this direction. That's a part of cockpit, and this one is on this picture. And also they used air-to-air missile, Romeo 60, R-60. Recently, a Ukrainian tycoon, Igor Kolomoisky, who is incidentally the governor of the Dnepropetrovsk region, confessed publicly over TV that it was Ukrainian army that hit this plane, unintentionally, as he said, because Ukrainians wanted to hit another plane, probably presidential number one, with Mr. Putin, going back from his Latin American tour to Russia. Yes, this is, I borrowed from Russian MOD picture describing how it took place when Sukhoi 25 interceptor just hit the plane first. And on this you will see the holes from the gun I mentioned. This 30 millimeters in diameter. Some people used to say that they used Buk anti-aircraft system, resistant fighters, but they didn't have it, never. And the plane was hit over Ukrainian territory. The plane, Sukhoi 25, lifted off from Ukrainian airfield and landed on Ukrainian airfield. It was piloted by Ukrainian pilot. There are 8 Buk anti-aircraft systems just en route. MH17 was hit here. Not Russians, but Ukrainian, all of them. Unfortunately, we are dissatisfied with the outcome of the recent investigation press release that was made public not a long time ago concerning this disaster. Yes, who has unleashed the Cold War II? I think that it was done intentionally by President Obama. His intentions were covered up, not revealed openly in the public, but they are listed here. You may read by yourself. To undermine Russian military and economic potential, to increase NATO military expenditures, it happened already in Newport, to create more pro-Western states along the perimeter of the Russian territory, to ruin the prestige of the Russian president and to oust him, that's the maximum goal, and to undermine European economy, not only one country, but the entire economy as the main rival of the United States. And to make Europeans more submissive to the United States, obeying to its orders. Well, currently the new Cold War between the United States and Russia is in full swing. Lucky we are that it's not embracing the entire globe like the Cold War #1. In this slide, I just borrowed an expression articulated by famous US politologist Stephen Cohen, who used to say that the current crisis is the most worst and potentially the most dangerous confrontation between the United States and Russia since the end of the Caribbean crisis in '62. And this is a new Cold War, he used to say, and I agree with him entirely. And its epicenter is currently not in Berlin during the Berlin crisis in the '60s, but rather near the Russian borders. There are specific features that can describe the Cold War #2. I collected almost all stumbling blocks in arms control process, which has been, unfortunately, entirely blocked. We do not have any arms control agreements, talks, or even mere simple consultations with the United States. So some of them are, so to say, minor. Some of them are very alarming, like BMDS deployment, a continuation, convention of strategic submarine ballistic nuclear into the same kind of submarines, but equipped with conventional cruise missiles. And there is no desire to count strategic offensive arms entirely. Some of them are concealed in the active reserve that can be commissioned again and used in practical terms. Well, etc., etc. Militarization of outer space is still continuing. No desire to subscribe to the CFE, Conventional Forces Treaty #2, from NATO countries. By the way, nobody has ratified the CFE 1, and we have confronted with them till the demise of CFE 1 over terminology. What does it mean, substantial military formations or military forces, etc. Baltic air policing, I have already talked about that. No desire to sign comprehensive test ban treaty. That's #13. No limitations on combat armed unmanned aerial vehicles, etc. So modernization of strategic offensive arms in the United States will open, so to say, that will go till 2075 and beyond. The core of this modernization will be a composition of completely new triad, strategic triad, ICBM, heavy strategic bombers plus SSBNs. So American experts count and predict that expenditures for all these projects in 30 years' time will require more than $1 trillion. Tremendous amount of money. This is a map describing a composition of conventional forces, tactical nuclear weapons, and BMDS in Europe. Out of 5 existing tactical nuclear bombs of the United States, 3 of them are regarded strategic because they can be carried by strategic bombers B-52H Hotel and more contemporary aircraft B-2A Alpha. This is modernization schemes and really constitutes a formidable threat to the Russian Federation because we do not have such capabilities, especially in the form of Chicago Triad on the other side of the cross-Atlantic. Next slide, it's a graphical illustration of what I'm talking about. Forward-based systems, coupled with the first strike, nuclear first strike capabilities. We do not have such clause in our military doctrine. This is a naval component of Aegis BMDS. Look, by the year 2041, the U.S. Navy will have 84 cruisers and destroyers, which will constitute roughly 1/3 of the entire U.S. Navy force. So it's a very good asset, I mean, for them, because the world ocean is free for navigation. They can sail their ships with Aegis missiles, interceptors to any kind of sea. This is the graphic of the global BMDS, already operational, with a BMD center in Pentagon and in Ramstein, Federal Republic of Germany, tested, very successful. For example, ground-based interceptors gave 54% of successful interceptors while conducting exercises. Around 80% Aegis, seaborne BMDS, and 100% the system called THAAD in abbreviation form. We pronounce it THAAD. It's tactical, theater high altitude area defense, a second layer. Wales summit approved NATO readiness action plan against us, sanctioned the NATO spearhead force. Composition will be debated and stamped next February. Established 2 new NATO C-Cube-I centers in Poland and Lithuania. Communication, control, and command and control, plus intelligence, that's abbreviation. And urge more NATO member states to join the US BMDAs in any form, financial, military, etc., etc. So the Wales summit is the most anti-Russian meeting after the Cold War I. Do we have something? Yes, please. Thank you. This is the graphic description of the Chicago Triad. Previously, it was traditional ICBM, SLBM, and heavy bombers. Later on, it has been converted into the old dyad, nuclear weapons and conventional forces. But in Chicago, May 2012, and later in Newport, last September, it has been created a composition of a combination of these 3 elements. Writing on the wall. So the temptation is great to deliver a first strike nuclear attack upon us and to protect the United States territory, the territory of its allies, by using West deployed BMDS. This will upset the equilibrium, rather shaky, that is existing in today's world. Extra challenge. Russian accession, extra challenge, a strong anti-Russian war flagging rhetoric. A pioneer in this rhetoric was President Obama himself, speaking, addressing the UN General Assembly session and later on Democratic Party convention for the upcoming presidential elections. Russia aggression in Ukraine, Russia annexation of Crimea, Russia violated all international accords, Russia ranks 2nd place between Ebola fever and terrorism. He meant Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. So, and Russia will pay high price. That's why he just initiated economic, financial, and individual sanctions against us. This is Chuck Hagel's Russia is on NATO doorstep, vice versa. This is the demand of the United States for the Russians to get out from the areas adjacent to Ukraine, but on Russia's territory. This is our land. We are not criticizing other governments. They can do whatever they wish on their own land for the sake of maintaining national defense and national capabilities. One more threat I would like to draw your attention specifically. The USA widely uses its secret services whenever it feels that the use of direct military forces or military interventions will be too costly or too risky for the United States servicemen. It was reported recently that the United States is ready to wage secret and undeclared wars by using rebels against various governments, like Islamic State, and by exploiting political, economic, military, and psychological methods upon any adversary, as it was stated in the announcement of the U.S. Special Operations Command recently. And that's why the USA Secret Services must not wage more proxy wars, destabilize the other elected governments, demonize other leaders, intervene all across the globe. Sorry for this mistake. So through elections, this is a very frequently used method. In Ukraine, it happened several times when Mr. Yushchenko was elected. And by the way, ex-US ambassador to Moscow, Mr. Michael McFaul, prior to his appointment as a national security advisor and ambassador to the Russian Federation, he confessed during public intervention the entire mechanism, what kind of money have been channeled to topple the existing government in Ukraine in the year 2004. Through various channels, including the United States Agency for International Development and rather democratically known and renowned organizations, election commissions, etc., etc. So, through arranging of Maidan-type riots, the U.S. Secret Service helped to implant pro-Western regime in Kiev last February. Through a hybrid war type warfare, in its modern connotation, meaning waging conventional wars plus cyber and information wars, they're using the same kind of goals, seeking the same seeking the same type of goals. And the CIA can endanger a group, engineer a coup abroad, but unfortunately cannot predict what will happen afterwards. It's a classic example of current Ukrainian crisis. They toppled Viktor Yanukovych very easily, unfortunately with a number of deaths and victims, but not so great like during massive wars. But nevertheless, they never predicted what will happen in Donbass with the Ukrainian economy, with the split of the Ukrainian society into various groups. One is pro-NATO, the other one is against NATO. One is de facto wishing to restore nuclear capabilities of Ukraine, the other prefers the other way around, etc., etc. So the CIA manipulates the public perceptions of what is going in this world. It interferes into private life of rank-and-file citizens and even the world leaders. The US Special Services are manipulating the world public opinion via the global mass media. In the present-day environment and in the future, the USA Secret Services should stop infiltration into internal affairs of other nations and single individuals and better serve its natural goal, like all secret services have in mind and entrusted by their leaders, to maintain and guarantee the security of its nation entirely. In this context, listening to phone calls and reading email of almost every citizen in the United States and more than 30 world leaders should be prohibited, because such practice is a threat to individual liberties and runs counter to the basic human rights and the international law. Practical suggestions, practical solutions. Tactical nuclear weapons belonging to the United States should be pulled back from Europe, including the relative infrastructure, for good, for absolutely. And the United States should cancel its first use of nuclear weapons policy in the framework of preemptive and preventive nuclear attack. An international ABM treaty should be elaborated not on the basis of bilateral, like we had with the United States government, but multilateral, involving countries who are having missile capabilities and anti-ballistic missile potential as well. And NATO should stop its conventional military buildup near Russia, and the new CFE treaty should be elaborated and drafted, and the Baltic air policing operation has to be cancelled. As to Ukraine, the people of Donbass do not want to live under the Kiev rule. They are sick and tired. They want to create their independent state. They would like only to have commercial ties with Kiev authorities. And I think that we have to honor their desire. Ukrainian parliament should reiterate forever Ukrainian non-aligned and non-nuclear state status. The United States and NATO must cancel and completely stop all moral and material support to the current Kiev regime, aggravating international internal situation. And final clause, nobody must interfere in the upcoming elections in Donbass that fully correspond to the recent Minsk arrangements and scheduled to be held on November 4th, next upcoming Sunday. Likewise, nobody has interfered with the recent parliamentary elections held in Ukraine. Instead of imposing, I will winding up my presentation, instead of winding the Cold War II that has been initiated and by the miscalculated policy of the United States and NATO, the entire European continent and the world at large really need a global détente, real détente, that was developing quite successfully during the last century, when, for example, in terms of arms control, we have signed 7 different agreements only in nuclear field with the United States government. Well, the principle of multipolar world and mutually assured security should prevail in the interstate and international relationship. The Cold War should be stopped and not proliferated into other areas of the globe. And any hybrid type warfare plus cyber information wars should be cancelled at all, especially such controversial concepts and schemes like control chaos or proxy wars. And there is an urgent need to carry out a rational reconstruction of the present-day situation and adapt it to new realities in the system of international relations. Here I stop. And for tomorrow's presentation, I left something in stock in terms of plain text and a PowerPoint presentation. I just show you one slide as a graphical illustration. What was Ukraine in 17th century, in the year 1654? Red. Yeah, and the rest was given afterwards. So I have a pre-printed presentation having 16 pages in English with 1 interval, and PowerPoint presentation having all these slides I have shown to you. You can use them absolutely free, reloaded from this computer with the help of organizers, yes, and use it either partially or entirely for your own purposes. Yes, it's not a classified information. Please feel free, and probably I should say thank you very much indeed.